we'd like to introduce to you right now. This is the new the training bench from Powermetrix. We're quite proud of it. The one you're looking at here is our transformer rated bench. We actually created two benches. The reason that we did that is, you have different level of meter techs at the utility companies. So you have the starting meter techs. They're starting out. They're going to work on all your self-contained stuff, and so we have a bench that is just self-contained. Then we have this one, which is the transformer rated bench. So this would be for your meter tech 2s or 3s, depending on how you guys classify it. So the guys that are more experienced can work on this, okay? And people were asking why. Why are you coming up with this? I've heard for 6 years now that you can't get enough training at the utility companies. That you're getting turnover with the guys that have all the experience. They're leaving now, and all that knowledge is going out the door. We also have new meter techs, young linemen that are thrown in the meter shop now. And how are we going to get those guys trained up? Because everybody's busy these days, so it's tough to have training. Well, with the training benches we've come up with, you can just roll them in. They're on rollers. They can just be rolled into a facility, plugged in the wall. We've got them transformed so that you don't have to have any extra power supply. You can just plug them right into a 120-volt receptacle and they work. So they're very easy to use. And we've got error scenarios built in there. It's pretty incredible. We can show a bunch of error scenarios on one of these, and we can even add an error scenario if you wanted to put it in there. But we've got a significant number of error scenarios. How many is it? It's
139 total.
139 total on the one you're looking at right here, of different error scenarios that we can put in there. So it's a great training tool, okay? And, unfortunately right now, we learned another thing. You can't always count on meter schools, can you? So we never thought we'd see something like this. And so before we really get rolling on this, if everybody doesn't mind, I'm going to offer a quick word of prayer. Just learned this morning 6.6 million people applying for unemployment. So it's a crazy time in our country. It's a crazy time in the world. So I'm going to offer up a quick prayer and then we'll get rolling, all right? Father, thank you so much for this time this morning, for not just fellowship with customers and friends out there, but also to learn our profession better, Father. It's crazy times right now. A lot of things we don't understand whys. We ask ourselves whys and we don't understand why. But Father, we know above everything else, we just need to give it to you. 6.6 million people out of work now. It's trying times for us. But hopefully in the middle of all this, Father, this is where people are going to turn to you and look to you, because there's no better source for comfort and encouragement than you. So right now, I lift our country up to you. All those folks that are watching right now and all those that aren't in our industry, just watch over them, Father, and keep them in your hands. All these things I ask according to the will of the one who paid it all, my brother Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank y'all. Okay, so we mentioned, I want to tell you about all of the different meter forms that we can actually look at on these, because it's actually, you wouldn't think you'd have that many on here, but it's pretty amazing how many different meter forms we can have on here. You just heard all of the different service types we can apply, but all of the error scenarios. So if we look at this, we actually have a set of CTs right here, right? So we've got CTs, we've got a 6S, 9S meter here, we've got a 5S meter, 3S meter, set of PTs, we've got a touch screen right here, okay? And then also you notice some of the safety stuff that's involved in here as far as turning things off and on. But all of these different service types we have here with a set of PTs, with a set of CTs. So think of all the things we can show someone. All of the different error scenarios, the possible problems you could run into out there. Making the right connections for the right meter forms. I mean, all of that is available to you now, okay? And not only can this be used with Powermetrix products, I mean, you can see some down there. I mean, you got room down there to put all your products and everything. But you can use different other pieces of equipment. Probe well, bird dog. You can use all of that. It's not specific to any type of product at all. It's just specific to teaching people, okay? It's just specific to teaching folks, okay? Like I said, you can see we can put stuff down here. The two main, the brains and the power of this thing are under here, okay? So you can see that, and that's the distribution center and the power supply, okay? And those are rack mounted down there in the bottom. And then this is actually, those are the brains. That's what makes the magic happen down there, okay? And then we have, like I said, we have all of this up here that we can look at, okay? So, let's see, I'll just make sure I'm covering everything, meter forms. Already talked about the wheels, it'd be a mobile. Plug it in the wall. We've got a power strip here that's it's also protected. It's got a breaker on it. So if you need a power supply here, all of the safety features of being able to turn this off you saw, you'll see here in a minute, we've got the light here to know that this station's live. And then also, if any of these cans get hot, we've got a light on top of each one of the cans also. Okay, so you're going to light up each one of the cans to let you know which one of these meters is hot. You have an emergency stop here, you can turn it off. You can also hit the main power here and you can turn it off. It does have a GFI protection in here, so if anybody reaches in and touches anything, we fully tested that as well. So not only is it is it safe, but also, I mean, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of stuff here, right, crammed in this little bitty area. And we're going to start getting into some of it here in a second. So let's go ahead and look at the, you want to talk about the self-contained a little bit?
Let's talk about the meter forms, the transfer rated supports. So on the 6S, 9S meter socket, you can simulate both a Y or a delta. You can also, I can do a 36S, I can do a 9S obviously, and an 8S as well. On the 5S service, we can drive a 3-wire delta, and that can be either grounded or ungrounded. And we can also support a single-phase service. Sometimes customers use some of their single-phase 3-wire, and they'll use a 5S meter in there. We can simulate that as well. On the 3S, pretty standard single-phase 3-wire, but you can also drive the voltage either 120 or 240 volts. The self-contained bench that you see on the PowerPoint, we have 16S service type, a 12S service type, 1S and 2S is split into the same, and we also have a dedicated probe well socket where you can train your guys using the probe well. The 16S can drive both a Y or delta load. 12S, same thing here. We can do a delta or a network. On the 1S and 2S, you can drive both 120 and 240 volt here as well. Self-contained is a little more simplified because we have no CTs built in. Everything is direct drive. But like John mentioned, it's great for guys starting in to be able to get especially their single-phase guys. It's perfect for them. And back over to John.
All right, so we ready to get started? So I am going to be the trainee in this. Those of you who know me know I can play that part pretty easily. So I'll be the trainee, and Chris Mullins is actually going to be the administrator on this, because this bench can be controlled with we have a pad that you can actually control. It's going to have an administrator, and he can control several of these benches, right? So you can turn them on and off. He can do different things with them, and that's who Chris is representing in this. He's going to be the administrator, and so you guys know a couple of quick points. The administrator has control over this. Okay, so if the administrator wanted to turn everything off, he could just turn everything off. Okay, if the administrator wanted to set, I want to set one error scenario for him, I want to set another error scenario for him, all done right here off of his pad. Okay, it's really easy. But like I said, he can even shut everything down with one press of the button. He can shut all the stations down if he needed to do that. It also times and records everything. It keeps a record of how long I was in that test session. It records which tests I did, and all of this is logged in so that people can look at that later on. Okay.
Hey Jared, let's switch back over to the admin console. So the admin console, like Jones was talking about, is built on a touchpad. It's a tablet, so the administrator can actually move around the facility, actually help out the technician if need be, because everything will be handheld. So with this console, you can control up to 4 benches at a time. You can start, stop it. You can have all 4 running at the same time. There are a lot of safety measures, and when we start driving, you'll be able to see some of these buttons light up. But there is a stop function that actually stops the individual bench, or there is a stop all button here on the bottom right where you can kill all 4 benches at once if you have 4 benches going.
And Chris, you can run different error scenarios on different stations, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
So I can run 4 unique scenarios simultaneously if the room allows it, yes.
Cool.
So each one of these tiles here represents a bench. So I'm going to click on the first one. This is bench 2. So Jones is at bench 2 right now. And it gives me the option of what sockets I can choose from. So I've got the 3S, the 5S/45S, and then I've got this multi-function, which is the 6S and 9S. So I'm going to click the 9S socket, and I'm going to choose the 8S, 9S meter here. And then once I select the socket, I have a choice between driving either a Y or a delta load. I'm going to choose a 4-wire Y. And then, like we mentioned, we've got a whole bunch of scenarios we can drive here, a lot. But I'm going to do one that's basic. It's a standard 4-wire Y service. So I select a normal scenario. So each one of these meter bases has a normal scenario at the very top. That is a perfect scenario, perfect situation. So I'm going to drive that. And I'm going to hit the select button. And so the tablet is now waiting on Jones. And if you go back to Jones, Jones has to confirm he has his PPE on before he can start his test.
Okay, fine, I'll take the hat off.
So this, again, it kind of gives a reminder for the technician to put your PPE on before the test begins. So right now, even though I've already queued up a test scenario, it will not start until he presses the start button on the touchscreen on his bench.
And only after all the property PPE up, so.
Notice that all of the lights are energized, so it's showing that each CT with the green light is active, also the PT. So I'm driving a true 3-phase load into all the PTs and CTs right down into the socket.
It doesn't give everything away. All it's going to tell you is that you've got a form 8 or 9S meter, a 4-wire Y active, and you see now that my time has started. So the timing on this training session has started, and it's going to time how long I'm here at this station working, okay?
Yeah, so at the end, once the admin or the technician press the finish button, it will record that time and log it into the record of the exact scenario, the time it took, and the time date stamp.
Perfect.
Now we're going to switch over to the Powermaster. So Jones has already hooked up his Powermaster into the socket, and he's going to run an integrated site test, which will be just doing a meter test and a CT test.
Did I move it? Did I mess it up? You all right? Okay. So you can see here on the screen that I'm sure if you've used the equipment before, you've seen this. This is the screen that shows you what's about to happen. So when you start the integrated site test, it goes into, I'm going to show you this is what we're about to do. You could have customized and created your own customer test, your own integrated site test. If you wanted to create your own IST, all you do is just check the boxes and save it, give it a name. And then from then on, it'll be in the equipment. Remember, it's always on the front end setup with us with the Powermetrix equipment. And once it's in there, it's always in there. And it's just drop-down boxes. Really easy, okay? So for this one, you can see I'm going to do a customer load test on the meter, and I'm going to do a CT test. I'm going to test CTs. So I'm just going to come over here, and this is just something that I do. I usually make it 30 seconds. I usually make it 30 seconds or 3 reps when I'm out in the field. Okay? So I'm going to hit next. And don't forget, if you double wrap your CTs, you got to check that double wrap box. I preach it out there in the field to y'all, but remember, if you don't, your 200 to 5 CTs, the test is going to think they're 400 to 5s. Okay, so make sure you check the double wrap box if you double wrap. We're not double wrapped here, so we didn't check the box. Okay? So you can see here, this is the screen that we've talked about this out in the field. If you've seen one of my presentations before that we talked about, this shows you where to make the connections. So for this 4-wire Y, 3 voltage, 3 current system, we're going to have all 3. We're going to have secondary voltage, ABC, and neutral. We're going to have secondary current, ABC. And then we're going to have all 3 primaries. We've got 3 flexes, so all 3 of our primaries are lit. And that isn't awful perfect looking. Yeah, that's utopia right there. We're not losing a dime anywhere, okay? We've got unity on all 3 phases. Yeah, you can go to the house now, boys, if you see that out there. You've done a pretty good job, whoever wired that one up. So we can see here with these the vectors, we've got all the phases, and my red's with my red, my yellow's with my yellow, and my blue's with my blue, okay? We're always, remember, red, yellow, blue, A, B, C.
And now if we swap back over to the admin station, what I did is I clicked on this particular bench and I can see exactly what Jones is seeing. So he is seeing a perfect sinusoidal waveform, just like me. And let's say I wanted to really screw around with them. I can go here where it says manual drive and I can start making adjustments, shifting my phase, adding or subtracting more amplitude, but I'll leave them alone for now. All right, back to Jones.
Thanks, Chris. All right, because I'm easily confused. Okay, so all that looks good. If I was out in the field, I'd be ecstatic, but anyway, I would say, okay, I can hit continue here. So now we're just looking for a pulse. And just a little quickie here, you'll notice on the 3 series now we've got this easy change out for my pickups right here, so it makes it easier for me because I'm going to swap between what's supplied now on the 3 series. You get a mag pickup and a blue flex with it, and you get one of these little extensions out here like this. It makes it really easy to change those pickups, okay? So that's what I'm going to do here in a minute, go to the blue flex. So everything looks good. I've got pulses. I always wait for at least 2. That's just me. That's the way Ray Gore taught me, and if Ray Gore says it, I do it. So I always wait for 2 to make sure I just don't have a nuisance pulse in there. I think we can live with that, 100.022. It's saying test in progress at the bottom in red. Once the test is complete, test complete in black. Let you know you finished. So remember, I had it set up for 30 seconds or 3 revs, so it's whichever it sees first. If you put a time and you put a number of revs in there, if you put both in there, it's whichever it sees first, it will complete the test. If I had left it at 0 or 3 revs, it would have gone a complete 3 revs before it completed the test. Okay? But in this case, it's whichever comes first, 30 seconds or 3 revs. So you can see test complete at the bottom, 100.012. We can live with that. Once again, before it performs any test, it's going to show you and ask you, do you have everything connected up the way you want it connected up? We have all 3 flexes on right here. So it's showing 3 solid green dots at the bottom for primary A, B, and C currents. If I was only using 1, I would have a solid green on A, and I'd have 2 open green circles for B and C. Okay? And you've seen that before probably when you've been doing a high volt test, okay? Because you're just on A phase, right? You're only connected on that. So it'll have a solid green on A, open circle green on B and C if I'm only using 1 probe or using a high volt probe. Okay? So all that looks good. Now since I'm using 3, it's just going to go A phase, B phase, C phase, okay? As long as I'm using 3 flexes like that, it just goes through all of them. If I was using 1, it would ask me to move it. It would say, put the probe on phase A and hit F6. And as soon as you did that, it would say, move the probe to phase B and hit F6. So it looks like all 3 passed. We're big on green is good, red is bad. So we got the green on the pass. So everything looks good there. Everything passed. Those numbers all look good, so I would hit done. And when I've completed the test, then if I wanted to, I could recall data and look at it again. I preach it to the guys out in the field. If I was out in the field, I would go ahead and recall data real quick before I moved on to the next one. Because if you don't, you'd sure hate to get down the road at the end of the day and look up and you fat fingered something that didn't save something. Or you entered something incorrectly. So I always go to recall data just to check it real quick. It just takes a second. I got everything in there, then I disconnect everything before I move on.
So if we move back to the tablet, Jones just completed his test successfully, and so as an administrator, I can hit the stop button down here. And once it stops, pop-up comes up where I can tell him either he passed, he failed, or there was a fault of some sort. So I'll put a comment on here. This is optional. I'll say LSU sucks. And then I'll give him a pass. And that completes his test. So that test just got logged. But let's say we want to make it a little more difficult for him. Let's try to run one that actually has an error involved. So I'm going to go back to the tablet, click on it. We're still running this 9S here. We're going to do a 4-wire Y. And we're going to choose a wiring error. So he doesn't know what's going on, but I'm gonna go ahead and select it and let him try to figure out what it is. So I select start and then back to Jones.
Okay. So we're going to go through the same procedure again of doing the test. The site hasn't changed any. You can see up in the upper right hand corner, I didn't change sites, so I can use this same menu. I'm still at this 9S. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the integrated site test again. Oh, start. Okay.
Gently. There you go.
I have to get this elbow button pushed down, but unfortunately I may have a couple of weeks to practice. So back to what Mullen said, nothing happens until I hit the start test, right? So if there was anything you needed to say to them before they got started or whatever, you could do that, and also make sure they were PP'd up. So, okay. So we're back here on the screen again, and now we're where we need to be. So we're on that same screen you guys saw a minute ago. I'm going to go ahead and make that 30 seconds or 3 revs, and I'm going to hit start. So everything looks okay. Looks like we have everything connected up correctly. Everybody know what that is? When our vectors are 180 degrees out, there's some sort of polarity reversal going on, right? You can see here my blues are lined up, my yellows are lined up, so my C phase and my B phase look okay, but I'm 180 degrees out. You can see that my secondary current has swung over 180 degrees out. It should be over there near my voltage, right? So I can see I've got an issue. So now let's keep going and see if we can figure out what it is. Once again, always wait for 2. Why is it taking so much longer for the pulses now? I don't have as many watts, do I? Because remember, polarity reversal affects things. So, here we go. So can I get an okay, can I test and get a good registration even though I may have a problem like a polarity reversal at my CTs? Can I still test that meter and get an okay registration? I can, can't I? So that's why it's so important to test those CTs. I can still get an okay, I can still get a good number registration on my meter, and I can have polarity reversal at my CTs. Now it will take longer because I don't have those watts, right? Because I'm killing watts with that polarity reversal. Because you've heard me say this a million times. When I reverse the polarity, it creates negative watts for that phase. When I'm getting a total number of watts, when I add up positive, positive, negative, then my number drops. So now I don't have as many watts coming out of that meter, so obviously it's going to run slower. So there's case in point, 100.028. But remember, I saw that polarity reversal earlier, so there's a problem, but the meter test didn't tell me what I needed to know. Okay? So test complete. Okay, before we test the CTs, again, it shows you the screen again. So we're connected, we're on primary A, B, and C right here. So what's everybody expecting here? We know we got polarity reversal, so we should be getting fails everywhere, right? We should be seeing fails everywhere. Uh-oh. We got a pass on all 3 phases.
So why are we getting a pass?
Okay, well remember, if I had polarity reversal on my secondary side, this thing would be screaming like crazy, right? It'd be telling you possible polarity reversal, don't like it, and then you'd look on there and see it. But if I saw that polarity reversal on A phase, but I'm not seeing it on the machine that is telling me that, then what must be connected wrong? Primary or secondary? Primary. right? So I've got, because the primary relates to the secondary. So if my primary is wrong, my secondary doesn't know it because it's in relation to my primary. If I have a secondary problem, it will jump out at you crazy. But this one, I saw that polarity reversal, but I tested okay on my CTs, and my meter is going to test okay anyway. But if I see an okay test on my CTs, I might start thinking about primary. Look at that primary, make sure the primary is connected correctly, okay? All right. Did that pass?
That passed.
Oh.
So good job, Technician Jones.
Thanks,
You
sir.
figured out the problem.
Thanks. And you know, I might want to say this too, and I joked with the guys and told them this earlier, but you know, operating it and using this thing, this is the first time, today's the first day I've actually done testing myself on the bench. I said, so if I can do it, especially if you met me and know me, you know if I can do it, you can do it. So I'm just saying. All right. So let's go. We're done with that one.
All right, so now we're going to do one more. That's another error scenario that kind of talks about what Jones was saying about the primary and secondary. So what if your primary was right, but maybe your secondary connections were wrong? So we're going to go back to the tablet real quick. And I'm selecting this socket. And we're going to choose 162, which is...
Don't tell me.
So those who see it on the screen can see what I'm doing. Right? I'm going to go ahead and select and start.
There you
And back over to Jones.
go. Okay. So you saw I didn't move any connections or anything, so I've left everything connected exactly the same meter, same CT setup and everything. We're going to run that same test again, okay? So I'm going to go to number 2. And I'm going to go down again and change it to 30 seconds.
Jared, back to the tablet real quick. So while Jones is setting up his Powermaster, notice what the trainer is seeing now. So I can see on the primary side I'm driving everything right. But notice my vector diagram here on the right for the secondary. Notice that my phase angles don't necessarily look correct. So we know our drive is okay, but something's going on the secondary side. All right, back to Jones.
Okay. So there's our, once again, our connections and everything, so that we're going to go ahead and just hit next. Oh, okay. So we see we have polarity reversal on A phase, which is just what we had on the last error scenario, right? But now we also see that we've got it on B phase. So what it looks like, just initially looking at that, you know, you guys have heard me say this out in the field a million times. Initially just looking at it, it looks like they've swapped the secondary connections on both A and B phase. Okay, that's what it looks like, just from looking at the vectors right now, and we'll find out here in a second if that is correct, all right? So it looks to me like they have, on the secondary side, that they have, they've rotated polarity reversal on both A phase and B phase, okay? So let's,
So Technician Jones, why is the meter pulsing?
it's still getting a pulse out of it, but I'm guessing now that as long as it's taking for me to get that second pulse, it's not seeing very many watts, which goes back to what we saw, right? On the, we turned around and saw that a minute ago. And we saw the polarity reversal. Now let me ask y'all a question. This is a bi-directional meter. So it can see both positive and negative registration, right? So when we're out there at a solar farm, and when we don't put received or delivered on there, if we just put it normal, it's going to give you a negative % registration, right? Because it's flowing in the, because I'm receiving power now, I'm not delivering power. Well, so if we remember that, and think about what's about to happen, if I've got 2 of them possibly swapped, guess what now? It's running awful slow. That's why it's taking me so long between my pulses. And notice what happens. Bidirectional meter, so we can, if it wasn't a bidirectional meter, we wouldn't even get anything, but we got a bidirectional meter, it's showing us a negative % registration, okay? So that's telling us right now that meter is seeing flow in the incorrect direction, right? We get in the opposite direction right now is what we're seeing. Well, if we think about that, if we have two of them and they are swapped, each of those now becomes negative watts. So I got negative watts on A phase, negative watts on B phase, and positive watts on C. The negatives are going to definitely outweigh the positives, right? So I'm going to end up with a negative registration. So that's what I had here. So I've got negative registration right here. I've got a negative 100.022.
What if I didn't have a bidirectional meter?
Okay. All right. So once again, same picture. We're about to test our CTs. Uh-oh. Like we said, on the primary side before, the machine didn't scream. But on the secondary side, the machine is screaming saying, we got some sort of a problem. Possible polarity reversal, right? So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hit continue. Or as they say at CFE down south, continue. So I'm given I got a fail on A phase. It said, I think A phase has got polarity reversal. It's doing the same thing on B phase. It's saying, hey. And sure enough. Remember what we talked about earlier? We said, you know, we're big on green good, red bad. Well, in this case now, when we have a fail, it's going to be in red. Follow the red numbers and see where the problem is. Okay? So, A phase, I've got a fail and I'm 180 degrees out. B phase, I got a fail and I'm 180 degrees out. Yep. So someone has swapped the secondary connections on my CTs on A phase and B phase. They've got my secondary swapped. All right, X1's X2. Okay. And then, are we going to
Yeah, good job, Technician Jones. I think
Thank you
passed
so much.
that one as well. While Jones is moving over to the 5S socket, because we wanted to kind of show you guys what a 5S Delta would look like. I'll kind of talk about some of the functions on the tablet. Like I said, it's handheld. It's running a Windows operating system, so you've got all the benefits you have with any kind of Windows app. If you look down at the bottom, you've got these users and logs. So when you first get the product, you start out as an administrator. You log in, create your own password, and then you have the ability to create admins, technicians, and trainees. And so the difference between a trainee and a technician is a trainee is somebody who's fairly new to field testing, and so they have to go through the whole entire process, and they're probably your apprentice in your shop. But if they're a technician, think of them more as a higher level tech, and they know a lot of these situations in the field. So the technician view is a little bit different on the bench, where the technician could see something like I would see as the admin. They can actually see the vectors, and they can manually adjust the phases because they have a little more experience. But the trainee does not. So we can create either, again, the three structures are admin, which is the top, technician, which is the second level, and trainee, which is the last level. So I've got all my users here, and if you click on the logs button, I can look at all the technicians, what they've done. So let's look and see what trainee D is doing. I want to clear that. Click on trainee D, and then view logs. So this is what the trainee D has done the whole time. So it shows it by the form, it shows it by what the service type is, the scenario name, the timestamp, how long it took that person to run the test, and their result. You know, did they pass? Did they have a fault of some sort where maybe the admin stopped it for some reason. This one's important to know that LSU still sucks for trainee D. So you can actually, with this particular trainee, you can actually export this data into a comma separated value, some kind of flat file, and this can go into their personnel file, or managers can have that if need be. So we don't have to necessarily have to we don't have to do it by technician. We can also do it by scenario. So if you wanted to say who's all done the let's see, the 9S one. Let's check the one we just did, 162, is that right? So let's click on that and then view logs. So trainee D has run this test 3 times in this particular result, and I can export that as well. So it kind of gives you some of the ability. Not only do you have the control panel here, now you've got all of the history of when everybody logged in and when all their training records, all in one tablet. So trainee Jones, are we ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm back on the bench, and this time I'm going to select the 5S 45S, and I'm going to drive a 3-wire delta. And I'm not going to mess with them today. We're just going to do a normal perfect scenario. And I hit select. And back over to Jones.
All right. So I went in, I have a site in here. You can see upper right hand corner, a 5S Delta site that I just created. So I'm going to go to the integrated site, just like we did before. And you can see here, going to go down just like I did before. I always do that 30 seconds or 3 revs, because if you're like me, when you have the lightest load is when it'll be 100 mosquitoes swarming all around your head, or you'll be standing in 2 feet of snow. So I always put it 30 seconds or 3 revs. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit. See here, you can see my connections over here where I've got my red, yellow, blue are my voltages here, here, and here. I've just got A and C current right here, right? So I've got A and C are connected here. And then I've got my neutral connected over on B phase, my reference phase.
Notice that what Jones is pointing out as far as the way the test switch is configured and wired, this can be customized. So if the customer likes their own color code or their own positioning of a test switch, this can easily be done at the time of manufacturing.
Good point. I don't have anything crazy, so I can go ahead and continue. So that I want to make sure I say this again. If you've noticed now, I mean, most of the time when you're getting somebody showing you demos or they're demonstrating things for you, a lot of times it's the 9S is right. They use the simple 9S. One of the things we're excited about with this is we're going to get to show you guys a lot of different forms now. 5S Deltas, 5S Deltas B Granite. We'll be able to show you a lot of these different services and therefore show you a lot of different meter forms. So it's not going to be that generic every time it's a 9S and throw that in there and yeah, everybody knows what that looks like. But what about some of this funkier stuff like 5S Deltas in there, okay?
Yeah, I think everyone's seen 4-wire wires too often.
Yeah. I don't want to hear snoring, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one tested out okay on my 5S Delta, right? Okay, everything looks okay. So just with A and C current, so we have got a test on just the A and C CTs, and both of them passed, so everything looks okay. So I'm going to hit done. Now I'm going to go to that recall data I told you about real quick, and we'll look at all these tests that we just ran. So I'm going to go to recall data number 7. All right, and go to my, if I go to the 5S Delta site, if I go down to it, one that we just tested, it's a tree diagram, so I just expanded out here with F6. It's going to show the different testing sessions and when we tested there, and then within each testing session when they started, it's going to show the actual date and timestamp of each test. Okay, so I can drop down. And here's what we did today. So you can pull it up and take a look at it. So you could do that, like I said, I think it's just a great idea to do that before you disconnect everything. You can see it just takes a second. You just make sure that everything was recorded, didn't fat finger or mess anything up before you disconnect all those cables and everything. Because we all know with this equipment, it takes longer to connect everything up than it does to run the test. Okay, so before you disconnect everything, just run that quick recall data. Just make sure you captured everything, okay? So I'm going to hit exit, and we'll take a look. Let's look at that. Let's look at the 9S. And it works the same way. So you can see, you just go down there and pick the one you want. Obviously, we're pretty proud of this. You can see why we are. It's in that 6 feet, we've got a tremendous amount of technology and capability packaged in there. Now we've opened up to all these different meter forms we can test folks on, hundreds of scenarios, area scenarios we can put in there. It's so mobile, it's easy to roll around, and you can store it until you're ready to start teaching classes. And we are pretty doggone happy. I mean, you know, we're pretty proud of it, and you can see why we are. You know, all of this thing, as far as locking, drawers locking, all that, you can look through all the specifications and see we've put in not only for safety but security. Because one of the biggest things that when we're developing the product we talk to people about is the security of it. Because if you're going to actually institute a training program at your place, then you're going to want to keep everything, the right students with all the right information and all that stuff. So we've got both security from the software side of it and security even locking drawers and all this and being able to lock this thing down. Okay? And last but not least, everybody be careful out there right now. I mean, it's just crazy right now. It seems like it's a brave new world out there. We've actually here at the company had some folks that know of some folks impacted, and you can think you're being as safe as you can, but just be extra careful right now, okay? Because we really appreciate y'all as customers and as friends out there, so God bless and have a great day, okay? Be careful. We'll see you at the next one.